Did you play sports growing up? And did you like, because I feel like you're a big sports guy. Every time I've been to your office, you have like all of the memorabilia, you have all of the helmets and jerseys and stuff.
I was a big baseball guy.
Got it.
Yeah,
like
big
Flyer. What am I talking about? Flyers.
Phillies.
Oh, Phillies, yeah, Philadelphia Phillies, yeah.
Yeah, no, I was a big baseball guy playing. I started playing when I was like 6 years old. Loved it. Loved every practice. Loved getting better. Played through college, and then I got hurt my freshman year. So, and I was a catcher, so I got in like a car accident, kind of hurt my back a little bit. But
it's weird how popular baseball was when I was a kid. Like in general, I could remember like every baseball team from the 90s, like every player, like all these player names. I used to play all the video games. Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball. Did you ever play that game?
Yeah, I love that stuff growing up.
Yeah. And then it's weird. I think like over time, the sport has, because it's slower and old school, it's lost its popularity a little bit. So they're trying to speed the game up. And now if you know baseball, you know, now it's all home runs and strikeouts. Like it used to be like singles and doubles were a thing, not anymore.
Yeah. I was watching the game last night, and I was thinking that too. It sucks because it's kind of like dying a little bit.
Yeah.
But that, and then trying to speed everything up is, I don't feel like it's right because it's not really the sport, but you know, only having so much time to throw a pitch, and you know, I get the idea behind it. But
yeah, they're trying to keep the generation interested. Like everybody's on their phones, and we're all like ADD now. And you know, now it's like, you know, the analytics have taken over the game, where it's like they're not even stealing bases anymore because they're like, why would I steal? It's too risky. I'll just try to hit a home run with a guy on base. And you know, you see it happening in basketball where everybody's shooting threes, and now in baseball, everyone's just going for home runs. So they're trying to figure it out. Like make the game entertaining, let the analytics do its thing, but also keep fans engaged. So it's it's not as popular as it was, but baseball was my love for sure when I was a kid as well.
You definitely see more bloopers now of you know, balls heading into the stands and people have their face buried in their phone and, you know, almost lose their life.
They have to make the game, all the surrounding parts, like a theme park. Otherwise people just lose interest because they can't wait like 30 seconds between pitches. So all right, everybody, we are going to start. Welcome to our National Leaders Call. We have a great speaker today. And as you guys know, I've been calling this the masterclass of leadership because every week you guys are getting access to the best of our industry, picking a specific topic and giving you guys an hour of their day where they're sharing with you in-depth details of how these topics relate to leadership, to you guys building your teams, to the training program. And the thing that I love the most about these calls is you guys are hearing from people that, you know, started off just like you. They were reps, they were leaders, they were trying to figure it out. And I really think that these calls can make such a big difference in our industry because you guys are getting access to people outside of your office so much more frequently than ever before. Where, you know, me and AJ, when we came up in the business, a Dallas conference, if you went, you were selected, you went one time. So you got one meeting a year where you got access to all the best of the best in the industry. Well, now you guys get one meeting a week. And if you include Larry's call on Sundays for the leaders in this call, you guys are getting two calls a week, one with Larry and then one with one of the best, you know, owners and leaders in our industry. So please take notes, you know, ask questions. We want this to be engaging. And today we have Mr. AJ Gramlick. AJ, how you feeling?
Feeling great, man. Thank you.
So here's a little bit of background about you. You're from Philly, and you told me, like, you know, people that come into our business, a lot of them come from restaurants or come from marketing. And you heard Joy last week, she was in finance and sort of the business world style. And so maybe it kind of relates. You came from a completely different background. You finished nursing school and then you went into door-to-door sales. So first of all, what made you want to get into nursing school? What kind of motivated you to do that? And then what made you switch after you graduated?
I was the second person to go to college in my family. No idea what, you know, I really wanted to do. It was kind of just a thing back then. It was like, you know, college was the next move. You had to go or you weren't going to be successful in life. So I got into school, didn't know what I was going to pick for school. I was driving in the car one day with my mom, and I'm, you know, having a conversation about what subject to really go for. And she was like, you should just go to school to be a nurse. She was like, if your aunt's a nurse, you know, she makes good money, make $1,000 a week. Nursing's in such a demand right now that, like, when you graduate, you know, the picture that was painted for me was you graduate school and you go to these job fairs, and instead of like you interviewing hospitals, the hospitals interviewing you and trying to recruit you and
Yeah.
pay you as much as possible. Definitely was not, not the situation. Plus, I found out pretty quick that it just wasn't my field. All the respect in the world for anybody in the healthcare industry, and just wasn't for me.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of people, when they're young, they sort of make these decisions before they really know who they are. And so a lot of times in college, people change their major, they sort of change their passion, and then they grow up. They become more confident. They change what's important to them. And so you got out of nursing school and you're like, all right, now I'm going to try sales. And so you said you got into canvassing and you're working for a different company, not this one. And you said you climbed the ladder of that business, but the growth really wasn't there, right? You told me that you actually got the promotion and they made all these promises, but then there wasn't the growth, that you were stuck. So you left that job, and you went looking for new opportunities. And then you met this guy named Ken. So can you talk about that experience and then what made you actually go back to doing sales even after you had a kind of a bad experience doing it before?
Yeah, I started actually, like a lot of people don't know that, but I started canvassing at this small little local home improvement company. And it was like, once you get to this role here and you'll run car rides to the field, you'll get a company car, hit the qualifications, walked in. I was like, hey, where's the company car? And they were like, well, we're not going to give you a company car because this guy owns a minivan and that's just perfect for running car rides to the field. And that was kind of like the first little tidbit I got of like, all right, what else is not going to come true? So I just started looking for other work. That was kind of like my turn off to sales almost. And I was like, let me hit the ground running, looking for other work, and came across a lot of sales jobs. I probably interviewed with 6 or 7 other sales companies before coming in contact with Ken's office, and I was turned off to every one of them because of that experience. But also, I was always very honest. So they would explain what it is, and I was like, hey, look, not for me, and I walked out, didn't leave anybody hanging. I came into Ken's office. It was my second interview of 3 that day. Honestly, probably I remember being more excited about the third one. And I walked in and, Maddie was in the lobby and, there was like 11 people in the lobby. I walked up and I was like, look, how long is this going to take? Cause I got somewhere to go. And, she was like, hey, you're next. So this is the assistant manager in the office came in and grabbed me. No idea what it was, but we sat down and, he told me that it was canvassing for a home improvement company. And it was probably 30 seconds into the interview. And I stood up in my chair and I said, hey, this just isn't what I'm looking for. Thanks, for the time. And I think he was a little thrown off. So he was like, hey, let me go get Ken. He's the manager of the building. Ken comes in and, I just built a good rapport with Ken, 20 minutes in. I remember going from, wanting to walk out to like, all right, bro, let's do this. I remember saying that too. But he was like, well, I can't just, offer you the position. I got to send you out on a second round interview. Yeah, you got to go shadow it. And I looked at him and I was like, look, I get it. We go door to door. But if you're telling me I got to do that to get to where you are and you're going to help me get there, then I'm all in, So then he sent me on a second round interview anyway.
Wow. That's crazy. We talk about, a lot of our owners were talking about sort of the first interview and how important that is. And when you're transparent with people and you really have that connection point, it lasts way beyond the interview. People come in and they feel like, okay, I'm doing this, let's see what happens. And thank God Ken came into that room because you've been a huge asset and it made a big difference in his life. You've been an owner for 10 years, a little over 10 years now. You got promoted to regional consultant a couple of years ago. You oversee 11 offices, and I know you got a lot of owners on deck. And you've when I was talking to you before the call, I've always noticed about you, AJ, is you do whatever it takes. Like you will move. I've seen you move up and down the East Coast. You'll go to any city. You'll switch programs. You do whatever it takes to be successful. Where did that come from in your mind? I know you said you grew up in a tough area in Philly. You saw your parents work 2 jobs, but where do you think that mindset of, keep pushing and keep working hard, where does that stem from?
A lot of it honestly probably comes from this business. I did watch both my parents work 2 jobs to, kind of have this little row home in Southwest Philadelphia. And I know the mortgage was like $900 and, they pull together and pay the mortgage. And I remember going to dinner, like, all right, we were able to get that month over with and here's our treat. Let's move on to the next month. And I just didn't want that by any means. So, if it was, hey, work hard to get out of that situation, then for sure I was going to do it. I didn't mind working the hours because I didn't want to go back to that anyway. That mentality, a lot of it probably came from just belief in surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be in their position. And just because of it, someone was like, hey, move to a new city, do this program, go here. I never questioned it, honestly. I'm in South Jersey now because Ken called me a month ago and was like, go to South Jersey from Delaware. And, that was then the next day.
That's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, you have a baby on the way.
10 weeks.
10 weeks. Wow. That's exciting.
Very excited.
You got another step 7 added to the list, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be running meetings with the baby strapped to my chest soon.
That's awesome. Well, guys, today, AJ is going to talk about mentality. And I love this topic because everybody that's in the position of leadership right now, what's really going to make the difference for you to separate yourself from the pack is your mentality and your ability to overcome negatives, your ability to work through things. And you guys have heard the quote, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Well, AJ is the ultimate example of hard work. So there couldn't be a better person to speak to you guys about mentality, how it relates to the field, how it relates to building a team. And so if I'm you, I'm taking notes, and please guys, ask questions throughout the call. We love to get that Q&A started. So AJ, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thanks, man. And if anybody does ask a question that you feel very relevant, feel free to jump in. All right, guys. So mentality, great subject. For me, a mentality is really just doing whatever it takes. If someone sets up a goal for themselves, then there is nothing holding that person back from hitting that goal other than themselves. The first thing when it comes to mentality, obviously what we do at the field side is understanding the law of averages. And I think that law of averages is very important because it's something that I feel changes, from the time someone starts to when they, are in the business for, a short amount of time. So I think a lot of people, including myself, looked at this coming in like, all right, I can make a certain amount of money per sale, and I have the opportunity every day to do as many sales as I want. And getting explained law of averages, right? The more people you talk to, the more people that you will find interested, and the more people you talk to with a positive attitude. That's very important. So if you look up law of averages in the dictionary, it's just a belief that if you do something so many times, when you hit your goal, you can average it out, and it will come out to 1 in so many people signed up for what we do in sales. And I think that somehow in the first maybe few weeks of someone being new in what we do, they turn the law of averages into, let me go talk to 30 people in the field today, or let me just go talk to 40 people, or let me go talk to 50 people. I feel like every program just has this set number that someone has to just go talk to for that day. And, they'll look at it and say, if I just go talk to 40 people and inspire, then, I'm going to sign up 3 or 4 enrollments or sign up 3 or 4 people. And that is not the case. And that is not the law of averages. In fact, the math doesn't even add up. And there's nowhere that you're going to look and say and see the result of, if you go talk to 40 people, 4 people will sign up. That is not the case. Law of averages is just it's what we use to describe someone going out there and just keep talking to people. And if you keep doing that, you will eventually hit your goal. And I have my story with really figuring out that the law of averages works. When I was in the field, the law of averages, which kind of got taught, was 40 people, 1 in 10 signed up. We did home improvements. We did lead generation for window siding and roofing. And every night I get back and I would have my day broken down. And if I talked to 30 people, it was a slow day. It was like, all right, well, you didn't talk to enough people. You have to talk to 40. And I also remember those day breakdowns where, hey, I talked to 50 people, and people would say, hey, you talked to too many people. It's quality time with quality people. You're talking to too many. You have to talk to 40. And every time I went out and talked to 40 people, I would just do 2 sales. And that was kind of like I was known for in the very beginning. I just did 2 a day. I was never pushing and getting to that point where I was ringing the bell. And I remember I was probably 2 months in. We had that day in the field where, I don't know, Ken put pressure on everyone, and it seemed like everyone in the field rang the bell that day, except for me. I got in my car and I was driving home, and I was so just mad at myself. I was, just kind of just pissed at myself that, 2 months in, I can't get past that 2 hump. And I was like, I came up with a decision. I remember I was driving. I was like, there's 2 things that have to happen right now for me to get better at this. And one of them was, I have to get better at sales overnight. And I quickly threw that out because I've been doing this for 2 months. And if that was going to happen, it would have happened by now. The next thing was like, I just have to talk to more people. If I walk down street A on a Monday and talk to 40 people and do 2, and then the next day I go back and walk down the next street and talk to 40 people and do 2 more, it just made sense that if I combined that work for the day, that I would hit that 4. So I came into the office the next day and we were leaving for the field. And my leader was like, hey, the guys in the car ride want to grab Subway. Where do you want to go? Are you cool with that? And I said, politely, I was like, hey, Mike, screw lunch. I got work to do. And I was like, you just got to drop me off first. And he dropped me off and then took the team to lunch. And I was like, I was just prepared to work that day. And I went as hard as I ever, have gone in the training program up to that point. I wound up doing 4 sales by talking to 88 people. I remember the day. It was such a good feeling. It was a very late sale too. It was after 8 o'clock. And I was like, wow, I could do this. And for me, it was such an accomplishment. Not that I went out and did, 4 sales for that day, but the fact that I was able to set up a goal and just keep working towards it and not stopping until I hit it, and getting that feeling of like, all right, the sales is over. I knew how to ring the bell. I can do this every single day now. So that was kind of like, my impression on myself now moving forward was like, that's my expectations. And that's kind of the law of averages. So, my first thing is, if anyone is, has this feeling they want to go in the field today and only talk to 30 people or only talk to 40 people or 50 people and expect a result from it, you're already setting yourself up for failure, because that is not the law of averages. The law of averages is your work ethic, you setting up a goal for yourself, and you push forward for that goal every single second that you have until you hit that goal. And if you do that every day, then you'll hit your goal moving forward. We have this guy who's actually an owner. I remember when he was in the field, and it was when I was pretty new as an owner, and I was spending some time in the field, and I was going out and we would do 4 sales every single day training. And he would do 2 or 3. He was like, hey, he sat down with me the other day. He was like, how do you just go out and do 4 every day? And I was like, it's really, really simple. I was like, what's your goal? He was like, 4. I was like, so get in your car tomorrow, go to the field, but don't get back into your car until you do 4 sales. I was like, if you do that, you'll do 4 every day. And he was like, that makes so much sense. Comes back the next day, did 4 sales. And he was like, I just kept working until I hit my goal, and I hit 4 sales. Not a coincidence that became his habit, because your work ethic is habit. And he built a crew, teaching people to do the same thing, and then running an office now. So that's law of average. Don't set yourself up for failure, thinking that if you just go talk to 30 or 40 people today, that you're going to get the result that you want. You'll get the result that you want when you work towards it every single day. And that's all mentality, and someone's reputation. So pushing your law of averages. I played this podcast for the guys not too long ago. So, driving in, I stopped listening to music and started listening to a lot of podcasts, which was great. A lot of personal development stuff. And I came across this door-to-door sales podcast. It's Door-to-Door University, if anybody wants to look into it. But they were interviewing these 2 gentlemen, and it was high performance sales was the topic for the day. And these 2 guys did door-to-door sales in Utah for pest control. Very similar business, going out in the field, a 5-minute pitch. Their average sale was taking a credit card swipe at the door for $560. And they were interviewing this guy because he holds the record for the daily sales done on pest control in the industry. And it was 29 for the day. And they were breaking down the numbers, and the numbers were exactly what would be something very similar to Inspire, 4 sales a day. And he was like, when I came into this opportunity that he had, it was the same thing. People were like, hey, just go talk to 40, 50 people and you should do 4 sales for the day. And he was like, what I noticed is every time I just set up a goal for myself of 4, that I would turn around and do 2 or 3. And the next day was 4, and he would do 2 or 3. He said he had one day where he went out and did 4 sales. And he said it was such a good feeling, probably very similar to the story that I was just sharing. And he, the next day, goes out and sets up a goal for himself of 5. And someone else in the office was like, well, the standard's really just 4. And he was like, yeah, but I've done 4 before. Why would I set myself up for a goal that I've already accomplished once? And he pushed himself for 5, and he said he was doing 3 to 4 every single day. But eventually he hit that 5. And then the 5 turned into 6, and 6 turned into 7. And then he talked about how literally 10 a day was his standard in the field. And then he got to the point where he did 26, and he pushed himself and did 29 and still holds the record. And, he was just talking about taking advantage of every opportunity that you have in front of you. And if you're going to do something, why not be the best at it? So when he was in the field, phone off and just talking to as many people as possible. It even led into him getting a Segway in the field, where he was like using a Segway to talk to as many people as possible. And they were kind of making a joke about it, about how he used a Segway. And he said, yeah, the real joke is that I have a backup Segway in my car in case my Segway battery dies. And that's not saying like, hey, everyone on the call has got to go get a Segway in order to, be successful at this. But that's how serious he took what his, opportunity in front of him at that time was. That if he was going to be in the field and he had the chance to talk to as many people as possible, then he was going to take every opportunity to talk to as many people as possible to hit his goal. And did the summer over summer, and the first summer was less than 500 accounts, and then he got to the point where it was 1,500 plus accounts. And I thought it was great, because it was like this mindset is just what separates him from every other person that was telling him, hey, just only shoot for 4 going out the door. So that is kind of like pushing your law of averages. And I'm a big believer in the work ethic, because the work ethic makes up for a lot of things that people lack. So there's probably a lot of people on the call that look at it and say, hey, I'm not the greatest salesman or salesperson, but that's okay, because sometimes in what we do, the greatest salespeople don't really make it that far, because they're not good at duplicating themselves, because sales is a lot of personality. But someone can make up for all of everything they lack in just work ethic and attitude, and that is the one thing that's duplicatable. So when you're taking someone out and you're training them, you could teach someone to just work until they hit their goal. And if you had 10 people around you that every day worked until they hit their goals, then you would be very, very successful at what we do. So, and everyone has the potential to do that. It's just whether they choose to do it or not is really the question. Years ago, we went to an R&R, and Larry had Bill Rancid come up and speak on stage. And it was great. And Bill Rancid at the time, he won the first The Apprentice show, and super successful guy. But he was, he asked the audience, like, where do you think the most potential lays? And everyone was throwing out their answers, and he finally came out and said, he was like, the graveyard. He's like, the most potential you ever find is in a graveyard, because everyone has the potential to literally do whatever they want in life, but they choose not to do it or work towards it, so they just die with that talent. But everyone has it. So pushing for your law of average. So if you're setting up a goal for yourself today, and that goal might be 2 or 3 on one program, or 3 or 4 or 5, work until you hit it. If you do, it'll be the greatest feeling that you will probably have felt in this business in a while. And then you will get so confident that you were able to do it, that you'll start setting up bigger goals. And those bigger goals are going to take you well beyond, coming into the office and cutting territory and then going to the field for the day, trying to ring the bell. It'll help you build quicker. It'll help you develop better people around you. You'll notice that you'll become more successful at other things that you do, because you'll just have this habit of just working until you accomplish something. So pushing your law of averages. And then still sticking with the field, I'm a big believer that if someone just is so focused on the field that today they just want to go out and talk to 30, 40 people and hope that's going to really kind of bring them the results, they're really crossing their fingers and leaving everything up to chance. Versus if someone has like this huge step 7, and I mean a step 7 of what they really want to accomplish here, then they're thinking like way up here. The little things that, the field just happen. If someone has big enough goals on where they want to be 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years, and, have that ability to think 10 years down the road, how does someone lose their attitude in the field when a customer tells them no? It's impossible. But if someone's going out with this mindset of, I have to talk to 30, 40 people a day and hopefully do 3 or 4 sales, then every no seems to bother them, and that adds up over time. And it really comes down to them not thinking big enough. And I think that's another thing, just like law of averages, that step 7 is something that changes sometimes when someone first starts versus, when they're, in the business for a little bit, because they come in like management is 6 months down the road. I can make as much money as possible. It's quick growth. It's up to me. I'm going to crush this. And some people get caught up in the trap of, I just want to get to management. I did as well. I was probably like 6 months into the business. I was in Ken's office, got very complacent. We went on an expansion with like 5 people, and I looked around and I was like, hey, it's a small office, and I'm a little bit better than everyone, so I will grow the fastest here. And I didn't grow. And it took someone else coming into the office on an interview that came into atmosphere after his 3rd round interview and was like, I'm going to run this place in 3 months. And I was like, who's this guy think he is? And Ken was like, well, what's your step 7? And I was like, Ken, I want to get to management. And he was like, I know, but what is your step 7? And I was like, I want to get to management. I'm in this training program to get to management. And then Kim was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard you say. And I was like, but it's the management training program. And he was like, you can go be a manager anywhere. Because you can go to Chick-fil-A and you can be a manager in a matter of months. So management's just a title. What do you want to do with management in this business? That's your real step 7. And you got to really, really figure out what your step 7 is, because that's what's going to push you every single day to go in the field and push towards that goal. Because now you're actually working towards something. You can go anywhere and work towards management. But here, you have to figure out what you want to get out of getting into ownership. And that's what's going to stop someone from losing their attitude in the field and develop that mindset that I need to be at this point by this time, and no customer telling me no in the field is going to stop me. And they'll push through it every single day. So now that someone, obviously, law of average, just a beast in the field, can go out, hit their goals. They understand that, what that goal they set up is completely up to them to get there. And they have a huge step 7 on what they're working towards. The next thing is ownership. And ownership is a mentality that someone needs to have when they're in the field. So if someone's confident at sales doesn't get them into ownership. Someone gets handed the keys to a new office because they're already that next manager. They're just still in the field. They haven't gotten the title yet. It's not like someone comes in and they're like, hey, I do 5 sales a day and I can crush the field. Where's the keys to the office? It's never going to happen, because someone's not going to hand someone the keys and say, hey, now that you're good at sales, here's a million other things you have to be great at. Let's start working on them. They'll get to that point because they're already that individual. So, and people need to look at it like you're in the field right now building your business. Everything that your business will be is who you are right now. So if you looked at it and said, hey, because everyone knows himself personally, who loses their attitude in the field, if you just talk the talk but don't walk the walk, if you know what causes you to lose your attitude, if you tell other people that you're here for bigger goals than you really are, would you be happy having 10 of you on your crew? Or would you look at it and say that would just be a mess to manage? And that's got to be the first check that someone puts in place. And you need to be the person that you would want 10 of. And if that's the case, and that's what's going to start leading you towards that next role. But ownership definitely starts in the field. It doesn't start when someone gets promoted. Your ability, and I mean, look at anybody here that has a manager that, if you ask them to go in the field, you wouldn't expect them to come back with anything less than the bell. You wouldn't expect them to go in the field training you and lose their attitude when a customer tells them no. You wouldn't expect them to set up a goal and come back not hitting it and have nothing but excuses. You wouldn't expect them to not work, for the day when, the office launches. That's who you need to be now. And a lot of people don't realize it, but there's a million things that we got to work on. This gauge thing is something that Mike ran a long time ago that I absolutely love. But, sometimes people get caught up in the position that they're in, and it's easy to look at it and just say, hey, I'm a field rep because I'm in the field. It's 100% of what I do right now. But everyone needs to walk in every single day wanting to get better at everything they need to get better at to get to ownership. And that's not just sales. So when Mike ran this meeting, it was, if you look down at like a car cluster, the gauges, that's pretty much sums up everything that you got to get better at to get to ownership. And it, like I said, it's not just sales. It is the field, being consistent every single day. It is dressing like a manager, not dressing like a field rep. That is the one thing is like my big pet peeve is when people wear their worst shoes or their worst clothes in the field and they look at it like, hey, these are my field clothes or these are my field shoes, because they're already setting themselves up for failure. Because why should someone look at it and say, hey, because I'm in the field, I dress like a bum? I don't think it's a coincidence that if you look at a lot of people that, wear suits in the office, but they'll take the jacket up and roll the sleeves up, they do the best in the field because they carry themselves so much better. But dressing for the ownership position, not dressing for a field rep. How to have conversations with someone. And when you have a conversation with someone, does that person leave that conversation better, or do they leave that conversation worse? Like someone has to be unbelievable conversations while being in the field. It's what's going to get them to ownership. And how you carry yourself, your reputation, how good you are at recruiting. And I don't think that recruiting is something that someone just waits to, get to ownership to be good at. Like someone should be taking advantage and taking every opportunity on the table to recruit people when they're in the field. I brought in 2 friends when I was in the field. One of those friends helped someone else that was running an office, build a crew that helped them grow. And you never know, like, hey, let me bring this one person in, where that person's going to be in 6 months. Nobody has a magic ball to see that, but, taking every chance. And then how good are they at training? Are you walking in the office every day wanting to get better at training, knowing that your next trainee might not be till next week? But are you going to wait till you get that second round interview that starts to, screw it up? Or are you going to take every opportunity every day by getting with your manager and saying, hey, I need to train today, I need to train today, I need to train today, knowing that it's going to help you get better at training? And then personal development. I'm big on personal development. I wasn't for a while. I had a 45-minute drive into the office, years and years ago, and I would listen to the same music over and over and over. And I was, coming back from an airport. We were coming back from a meeting, and for some reason, like Grant Cardone popped on like my podcast that I had on, or it was like YouTube I was watching, and it was like his 10X interview, and like I fell in love with it. And the whole ride home was one after the other. And I was like, what am I doing listening to the same music over and over and over when this stuff's going to help me get better? And then I'm bringing in meetings into the atmosphere and teaching people to get involved in personal development. And, it all came from just making a decision to want to get better. But going back to these gauges, someone has to, realize it's not just the field. There's 7 or 8 things that someone has to get better at. And they need to walk in the office every single day, focused on getting better at something. And these needles need to move. And when these needles get all the way, to the right, the way you're looking at it, that's when you know that you're the next manager, your next owner. If you're like, hey, my field sales is great, but I can't have a conversation or, do an interview or train someone for the life of me, then when you walk in the morning, you should be getting in extra early to get with the best trainers, to get with the best recruiters, to get with the best, people that are having conversations. And you need to move the needle on every single one of these gauges, because once you do, that's when you'll know to be the next manager. And everything has to kind of happen in place, and then someone's going to grow. So no one's going to lack a few things here and there, and then the situation's going to grow around them. It's not sustainable. Someone has to get better at all of these things. And once they do, that's when they'll see 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, they're promoted, because that's when they have the ability to start, teach, train, develop anyone around them. And then you'll be happy when you have 10 of yous, if that's the word, on your crew, because you were the correct person to begin with. So, and you have to be a great example of all these things, because as leaders, I think sometimes, people forget that, like, we have other people's lives in our hands. If you take out an interview today and you tell someone that there's this great opportunity that someone can come in and be in an ownership position and run a business in 6 months, and you're the best trainer in the office, and you're going to train them to make $1,000 a week, and all the ups and downs that they're going to go through, you're going to be the person that's going to get them through them, then you need to be that person. Otherwise, you're just lying to that person. And when someone starts, we present this great opportunity in front of them that one day they're looking for a job, and the next thing you know, they could start, and we could teach them how to make $1,000 a week and get into an ownership position in a matter of months. They're looking for red flags when they walk in the door. They're like, what is really up here? And we need to make sure that we take all those red flags away, which is why it's so important that everyone says the same pitch, or everyone has the same work ethic. Or, if we say we're going to teach them how to do some certain things, then we need to teach that person how to do those things. And we can't tell someone that we're going to teach them how to make $1,000 a week if the average check in the office is $500. Man, I saw you unmute yourself. You got something?
No, I was just nodding in agreement. I mean, this is really, really good stuff. And when I was looking back, even at your first slide, how you were talking about, like, work ethic can compensate for the skills you lack, because you can gain those skills back by just continue to push yourself. And you were talking about how, more equals more, and not looking at whatever someone tells you as, hey, this is just, if you talk to 40 people, you're going to get your sales. Looking at it as, no, I need to talk to as many people as I can to get my sales. If it's 40, great. If it's 50, that's what I have to do. And I know a lot of leaders that are looking to put themselves in a position to take interviews every week to build their teams and get promoted. The extra mile mentality, going until you hit your goals, just having that attitude and working through whatever issues you have. I love it. I think that a lot of people sort of settle into, well, if I don't get my sales today, in the exact time frame that I was given, then, I guess I'm just not going to hit it. And the old quote that entrepreneurs work with a compass, not a clock, because they just follow until they get to their destination. I just think it's all really good stuff. So I don't want to interrupt. So continue to crush it, because these are really good slides.
And I agree with you on that everything is a mentality. And I think sometimes maybe leaders forget that their owners were in the field. And I'm so glad that I have that story that, if I talk to 40 people, I only did 2 a day, because it forced me to go talk to 88 people that day and set the pace. And that was like, it made me realize it's possible. Because if you would have asked anybody else at the time, 80, 90 people a day, not possible. But I made it happen. And when someone comes back and they're like, well, I talked to 17 people today and I didn't do any, I don't have sympathy for that person. I just look at that person and say, man, they're just not the right person. They just don't do whatever it takes. They don't have that mentality. And they don't look at it like, the field is their business. They were okay with their business doing $0 that day. And I think that, the mentality I had when I was in Ken's office, that office, that was my office. I was just building it with no cost, because Ken was covering all the cost of running the business. And I had the chance every day to walk in and get better what I had to work at, so I can get to the point that when I finally do run my business, it was a good business to run. And I took that, it wasn't just a field mentality. I took that mentality to everything that I did. I looked at the office like it was my office. I hate when I'm like, you walk through some offices and you see trash and just clutter like everywhere, especially like maybe a trash can outside, where it's like, well, the next interview that walks in here could be turned off by that. I remember when when we expanded, we went up to this office up in North Jersey, and Ken took over this office that had a previous owner in it. And we walked in, and the office just wasn't that good looking. It was very beat up. Beautiful office, but just from having 30 people running around the office, not caring about it, not looking at it like it was my office, mm-hmm. that marks all over the wall, expo markers everywhere, foot marks all over the bottom. And I looked at that and said, how can I bring someone in and tell someone that there's opportunity here if they're going to walk in and say, how could there be opportunity if the company treats it like this, And we just moved in, so it wasn't like it was Ken's fault. We were weeks in, Yeah. But it was Super Bowl Sunday, and everyone's like, watching the game. And I went to Home Depot and I bought a 5-gallon, jug of Oops paint for $35. It was literally like Smurf blue. And I spent the entire Sunday, didn't ask Ken. I came in and I spent the entire Sunday just painting atmosphere, and, did it throughout the night, got the whole thing done in one night. And, Ken came in that next morning and I was passed out on the couch in the lobby with blue paint all over me at 8 a.m. And he was like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I painted. And, and I went home and I showered, and you could ask him, went in the field, came back, went in the field, and I set the pace training that day. But I only did it because I was like, that was my office in the making. And I took it that seriously when I was in the field building my situation. I didn't accept zeros for myself in the field. I remember the first time we were learning a new program, I was in the field. I was like, this is going to be a joke. We're going from 4 to 9 products. Well, 8 o'clock rolled around, I was on 0. But I was knocking on doors that night till 10:30 at night before I got my first sign up, And I think the guy only signed up because he was like, he worked at LA Fitness and he wanted me to join LA Fitness, but he signed up, and I was like, hey, it took me till 10:30 at night to do that sale. But I was like, all right, I'm able to do it. I got back to the office. They ran a conference call the next day on how we can't knock on doors past 8 o'clock. And I was excited. I was like, that's because of me. But I wouldn't accept that from myself versus, people that come back and, I hate when someone goes in the field and they'll do 4 sales or they'll set the pace on their program and they come back they went through a war zone to get to that bell, and, they're the ultimate warrior for doing it. But then the next day they won't set the pace and they come back with a million excuses on why, and not realize that we were in the field. You have the same exact day. It's not like you dealt with all this adversity on Monday, but, and then didn't deal with it on Tuesday and dealt with it again on Wednesday. You have it every day. It's just, does your attitude get you through it on the day that you set the pace and on the days you did it?
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
That's kind of my take on it.
Sure. Really good.
And I told Van I was going to talk about this, but on Friday, I went home and I was watching the second Purge, and if anybody saw it, this guy in the movie was had this little deli, and he was like, I got to stay and I got to protect my deli. And people are like, why are you going to stay here and protect this little deli? And he was like, well, this deli is the American dream. He's like, this is my little slice of the pie that I have, and I have to hold on to it. And I think that too many people have that mindset where they just want like this little slice of the pie, and they don't realize that you're in sales. You have the opportunity to talk to as many people today as you want, make as much money as you want today, this week, this month. You train as many people as you want, because if you're waiting for your little slice of the pie of your manager to hand you a second round interview so you could start someone instead of going out and personal recruiting and bringing people in, then you're just waiting for that slice of the pie. And if you're waiting for you to get through this training program and make it take a year for yourself because you're not willing to work on your gauges every single day till you're blue in the face, instead of getting better every single day and not realize that if you come in an hour every single day and work on one thing, then you're going to be so much better in a month than you would take a year to just get better at by coming in every single day on time when you're supposed to. And too many people are just like, this is my slice. I'm just waiting for my slice, and don't realize that you just have the opportunity to bake more pies. You can have as many as you want. You can have as many people in your crew as you want. You can personal recruit, you can place ads, you can make as much money as you want. It's when you have one person in office that makes $500, and then I had another rep come up to me and said, I made $8,000 last month. They didn't work special territory. I didn't say, hey, I like this person more than this person, so let me give them that territory. They just are a different breed of people. They just do whatever it takes. They have the right mentality. They set up goals. It's not a coincidence that this person's going in the field like, hey, today you're going to see me do 7. When they come back, they have 7. They just work until they hit it. And then you have other people like, hey, I'm hoping to get through that first one. And they feel like that sign of relief when they finally get it. And it's just a different mentality. They just push until they hit their goals. So, but bake more pies. You can have whatever you want. You don't have to wait for your slice from anyone, from your manager for the next, how long you're going to take the next month, the 6 months. Bake more pies, have as much as you want. And I think that I love running this meeting, but some people don't realize this. And getting involved in sales, gives people an opportunity that a lot of other people don't have. And that opportunity is that they determine how much they make, not just in the field today, but running a business, in what we do, how many outside deals they're going to put out, how much money in overrides they want to make. They're in control of every aspect of where they can put themselves, their family, financially. And a lot of other people don't have that. If inflation hits hard and, someone's making $25 an hour, they can't always just walk up to their boss and say, hey, can I make 30 because my bills went up? Where someone can say, hey, I'm going to go write more sales in the field. Where, you know what, I do realize that there's things I got to get better at. So I am going to get better at it. And I am going to get through this training program in 5 months instead of 7. I am going to run a good office. I would love to have 10 of me around me because I developed the right me. And, if you look at like this business, like you're getting a vehicle to enter a race. One, the ultimate goal of entering a race should be that you want to win. No one should enter a race if they just, want to, tie for second or just hopefully not break down and cross the finish line. Like you enter the race because you want to win. And the vehicle that you get with this business is unlike anything I've ever seen. If you're going to build this ultimate motorcycle that you could put together in this game here, you would look at it and say, hey, this frame that holds everything together is like our opportunity. Like you can run a business in a matter of months if you were the right person, but you have to put yourself in the position to be that person. No one can look at their manager and say, wow, like this person I know runs a good business, but I'm a third of what they are, not willing to get better, even though I have the opportunity to get better every single day, but I'm going to get there. They have to get better at it. And then they have that opportunity. They can run a business with Fortune 500, clients. We have the clients that we have are crazy. The products in the field are unbelievable. It's always a good deal to the consumer. They're so hungry for more growth, not just in the market where we can keep growing, but for expansion, for people to get promoted in ownership. The engine that drives that bike, these clients and this opportunity are so hungry and they want so much more. And the thing that just keeps it moving, like the systems that we use, and we can teach someone the 4s, the 5s, the 8s. You can take it and you can apply it to any client that we work with in any market around the world. And it'll continue to drive that forward. The handlebars on a bike are like our leaders, the leadership in this company. You could start today and you can call solid leaders that are in a position that you would love to be in that have only been around for 3 months. up until people that have been around for 30 plus years, a phone call away that can automatically just, put you in a position to give you the right advice to help you get to where you want to be instantly, if you apply it. So the vehicle is unbelievable. The opportunity to come in and make as much money as you want, have an opportunity to run a business, have clients that no one else would really have the opportunity to even work on. The leadership that's, built this foundation that paved the way for you to get there. The only thing you don't get with this bike on a daily basis is the gas that you put in the tank. And that gas is your mentality. So if someone's like, hey, you know what? I understand the opportunity in front of me. I understand this vehicle that gets handed to me every single day. And if I mess up with it one day and, don't do what I need to do in the field, I get that same vehicle again tomorrow. But what kind of gas am I putting into it? Is it high octane? I got stuff to work on. I'm going to come in early. I'm going to get better at what I got to work on every single day, and truly not set up goals with myself, but make promises to myself. I promise myself I'm going to do 4 sales today in the field. I promise myself that I'm going to do 3 sales in the field, not have a hopes and dreams goal that everything aligns for you to hit it. But are you putting like that kind of gas into it where like nothing is going to stop you until you hit your goal? Or are you saying, hey, yeah, I get the same vehicles everyone else, but I got this watered down gas that I found on the side of the road that I'm going to put in there and hope that it gets me there? It's never going to get them. It's never going to get them somewhere, because there's always going to be people that come in and see this opportunity. They see this vehicle and they run with it. And they're the people that are in every office that we're talking about. Every manager, everyone that's getting on these calls and doing these leadership calls, or anyone that's in front of the room, they took that vehicle and they ran with it and they put it in a position where they are where they want it to be because they work towards it. And the good thing with everyone on this call is that they get the opportunity to get in front of that person as much as they want. Whether they choose to do it or not is up to them. Just like whether you hit your goals in the field, it's totally up to you. Whether you personal recruit to stack your own deck because you're not happy with how many people are on your crew. So totally up to you. How much gas, what kind of gas you put in the tank, that's your decision. Everything else is paved. Like, it's there. I've been doing, we talked in the beginning of the call, 10 years. If you would have seen the clients we had 10 years ago versus how hungry these clients are now that can literally move anywhere, I guarantee there's people in this call that can say, if I want to build a crew and go to Hawaii, I can open up an office in Hawaii. That's the opportunity. Are you willing to put that work in to get there? And that's your choice. So we were all there. The managers were there. So when someone comes back and they're like, hey, rough day, no one answered, 17 people, you lost your attitude. You didn't put the right gas in. So that's all I got, man.
AJ, I'm already seeing emails fly around saying this was, one of the most relevant calls to our business, to all programs. Please, guys, if you have questions, fire them in the chat. I'll start with my question, AJ. For a lot of people, you talked about having ownership mentality, right? And you talked about, taking ownership of your situation and really working as if, you're an entrepreneur. And I think for a lot of people that come into our business, like you said, they answer an ad. They're coming in kind of employee minded, right? Like I came in, wanting to be successful, but I was sort of in this employee mindset. And it took me a while to sort of think like an entrepreneur. And what is your advice? Because that's the one thing in our business that it's really hard for us to do. We can't make someone work like an entrepreneur when they're by themselves, right? They make those choices of whether they're going to work hard when no one's watching. Because this business is truly a work ethic business at its heart. People that come in that are really smart, that have all these ideas, that we love that too. But the people who are the most successful are the ones with the best work ethic and continue to push themselves. So where was it for you? Were you sort of thinking differently? And maybe you came in more entrepreneurial minded, but I know a lot of people that transition from thinking like an employee to thinking like an entrepreneur is tough. So what's your advice to get into that mindset if someone's not in it?
Yeah, I mean, when I came in, I didn't know that I was going to wind up doing this business, or I didn't know that I was going to wind up knocking on doors, and but I knew that I wanted to do my own thing, no matter what it was, in some way. The schedule that you get to create, how much money you make, how far you take something, how big you can build something. That's always been like a driving force. Even when I was in the field, someone's like, hey, like, what do you want to accomplish with this? Like, I just want to work and, like, I want to say work my ass off, but I just want to build something big Like you can look back and be proud you built that. You know what I mean? I mean, look at like Larry built and like, you know, and Ken and national consultants that have like huge organizations. And they can look back and say like, you know, there's no crystal ball to go, you know, ahead in the future and see that. But like one day they took an interview, they went out training on their first day, they knocked on the door, they lost their attitude, they had a big day in the field. You know, they went through the same thing everyone else is going through. And they could look back in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And they could look back and be like, man, I built that from scratch. And like, that's something that no one can take away from them. You know, and realize that like, yeah, if someone's good at sales, like that's where job security is, you know, and if someone's a good entrepreneur. You know, if you're a good entrepreneur and you just have that ability to create and set goals and you just work until you hit it, you can find a space and, hey, this is a need, and you can work towards, you know, bringing that to a space. Yeah, but it's definitely a different mentality. And that's where, I think that's where, you know, a lot of people need to realize that security is. You know, one thing obviously we could relate to, we do interviews all day. And for a lot of people that think that, you know, they have job security because they get a, you know, a certain amount of money on Friday, and they have to tailor their whole life around like just getting that paycheck, you know, the kind of house they live in or the kind of car they drive or what they can supply for their family and college that their kids can go to. You know, it's all tailored around how much that person can make. And we live in a gig economy where it's like, you know, people want to make more money. They have to go get a second job or, you know, Uber, or, you know, come up with another gig that they can do, and realize that, you know, if someone's good at something, you know, they determine everything. And I knew that. I always wanted that.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is we got a question here, and maybe this can relate a little bit to mentality, but because obviously when you're building a team, you need people, right? And, you know, I think when guys are building teams, sometimes it's hard to find people with this mentality, right? Because when we decide, hey, we want to be the top, we want to be the best of the best, we're making a decision to separate ourselves from the pack. But we need people to follow us, right? We need people who can relate, we can relate to, and they can relate to us. So what is your best way, AJ, to retain people after you've hired them, that and really just find those people to stick to you that have the mentality that you have?
Well, I think that you're always going to have people that are looking for work, right? Like they're always going to come in. There's always going to be second round interviews going out. You're going to retain someone if you just come through with what you say you're going to do. So when you, like I talked about, like someone's looking for a red flag, like, you know, they're starting in your office on a Monday and they're like, hey, I went out with so-and-so and they told me they're going to teach me how to make $1,000 a week. And there's this duplicatable system that I could just plug myself into, and they're going to teach me how to do it so I can get that same result. And then you come in and you find out that, you know, they lose their attitude over every little thing. And, you know, they do zeros and ones in the field and make a million excuses. Like no one's going to want to be around that. That person will come in, they'll try it out. They'll do 4 or 5 sales and they'll leave. You know, so just really just coming through with what you say you're going to do. I can't stand that. When someone's like, hey, I'm going to do this, and they just don't do it. It's as simple as going in the field and signing up 3 customers.
Yeah. So the best way, guys, if you listen to what AJ said, to retain people is just be a person of your word. When you say, you know, you're going to do something, you got to do it. And, you know, you got to be able to commit yourself to being someone who follows through on the things that you say are going to happen. And I know that when I say my goals to people, sometimes it's scary because when you say it out loud, like you got to do it. But I think it's a healthy pressure that every leader has to put on themselves to say something and then follow through and do it. And having that pressure on yourself to do the things you say you're going to do is actually really important. It's a habit, because once you start doing it, you get used to it. And then you just start calling your shots. You're like, all right, we're going to do this. And you go out and do it. And people start saying, wow, this person's, when they say something, it gets done. And that's going to give them tons of trust and belief in following you, because when you say big goals, they're like, well, those are going to happen too. And I'm sure, AJ, that's kind of how you felt about Ken when you met him and he started saying things. And then you're like, wow, this guy, he actually follows through on what he says. And now we're seeing the growth. And I believe if I follow him, I can achieve those type of things as well.
I was going to say that next, like people follow that. So
yeah.
You could, like someone can come into our business and train 5 people to be, you know, leaders in an office and get promoted and want to go expand. And look, maybe no one wants to follow them because they're like, hey, this person just doesn't follow through with what they say they're going to do. So why would I follow that person? There could also be people that train and develop 5 leaders around them, get promoted, and 20 people want to follow them because that person knows, like, hey, I'm going to put my future in that person's hand, because if they say they're going to do something and everything they're talking about they're doing now, I've seen it happen in the past, I'm following that. So, you know, it's everything that, you know, you want is up to that person who's thinking, hey, I want this. And I think I agree with you that people should be more vocal with their goals. Because if you get a group of people that are just vocal with their goals and they learn how to keep everyone like accountable for it, like it's way harder to come back with a zero when you're very vocal saying you're going to do something in the field. And that becomes your reputation. Do you become someone that does what they say they're going to do? And the good thing with our business, honestly, is that someone's reputation could be changed in a matter of weeks. Because if you're someone that goes out in the field every single day and doesn't perform, yeah, your reputation in the office might be that you're the underperformer. I once was. But you make that decision, never let that happen again, and you go in the field and you set the pace for a week or two. No one remembers the old you. All they remember is like, hey, that person there, they say they're going to do something, they do it.
Yeah. You know, things can change really quickly in our business. People can go from an entry-level rep to all of a sudden they're training people. I know a lot of times when I was new, I was kind of scared of responsibility, and I was almost afraid of like, moving up, because that meant more responsibility and more things I had to be, in charge of. How do you, what's the best way to like overcome the fear of success or taking on more and being in a higher position? So, I know maybe that's not a common question, but I know it exists in people being afraid of getting to the next level, the imposter syndrome, as they call it. How do you deal with that?
I think it's just a confidence thing. I think it's like one of the reasons too, a lot of people, not as many people personal recruit as they should, because they honestly just don't feel comfortable putting it out there that they do door-to-door sales or retail sales, and they're confident bringing someone into that space, knowing that, hey, I can train them to do, to make $1,000 a week. If you were confident that you could bring anybody in and teach that person to make $1,500 a week because you were making $1,500 a week, you would be lying to yourself if you would tell yourself that you wouldn't be trying to personally recruit every single person that you would come in contact with, and just embracing that confidence. And how do you get that confidence? Take on the responsibility, knowing you're probably going to fail 10 times at it, but then you're going to get really good at it because you're going to learn from your failures. And that's how you become a person that goes well beyond just producing in the field, but can then start taking on 10 other things in the office, and eventually get to the point where, someone will look at it and say, you're basically running the office, so you're the next manager.
Yeah. Wow. Well, one final question, AJ. This kind of goes back to developing leaders on your team. And this is like the old question, nature versus nurture, right? Are leaders born where when you're recruiting people, you're looking for someone who already has natural leadership, or do you look at it as you can really develop it in anyone? Where do you find that balance when it comes to building a team?
I think a lot of it is development. I think a lot of people are scared to learn how to develop. Like as a leader in the field, a lot of personal development has to go into oneself to get to the point where they can turn anyone into a leader. And that's going to be the easiest way for someone to get promoted. I think a lot of times it's easy for someone to look at someone that's on their crew and, hey, they did 4 sales and they quit. Like when someone quits, they're always like, they weren't fit for the business anyway. Well, you weren't saying that 2 weeks ago when you were saying they were the best thing since sliced bread, but, they weren't the leader that they could have been because you didn't develop them properly, because you're not developed properly. So if you're just waiting for the next superstar to walk in the office, you're going to be waiting a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Versus learning how to just develop someone and leadership in our business. I mean, consistent sales in the field, working hard, saying what you're going to do, teaching other people how to do it. That's like the foundation of everything else to come. It's not that hard to build a solid foundation on that. You say you're going to do something today in the field, and do it. Accomplish that. Learn how to do that 2 days, 3 days, 4 days in a row. It's only a matter of a week before you're like, man, I'm top producer, complete 180 on who I was. And that's what someone needs. They just need that little bit of confidence that they could do this, and it just takes off. It's like a fire.
Yeah. Well, AJ, you crushed this topic. I think that, I'm like fired up right now to like go talk to my leaders and go talk to my guys about LOA and mentality and more equals more. And you just said an answer right there, which is really our business, which is you're only as good as you can make other people. So dedicating yourself to developing others, and, we call it like servant leadership. Like you work for your guys, they don't work for you. And looking at how good you can make others as your skill. As you heard from Larissa and Ken, wanting to have millionaires on your team, it's something that is so valuable, but it all starts with you as the leader, being the hardest worker, having the best mentality, having the best attitude. So AJ, we're all thankful that you took the time today to speak to all the leaders across the country and all these programs. Guys, we're going to make sure AJ sends out his information. I know a lot of the owners have it, whether his email or his contact. I know AJ always loves to help. AJ, thank you so much. Great job today. And we look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Have a great day, everybody.